Good morning, I'm Trueson Daugherty, and I'm here at Brookside Studios, and we're doing the Marketing Minute Monday. So for my Marketing Minute Monday, we're going to talk about logos. I'm going to talk about just a few different things about what makes a good logo, if you're considering about maybe modifying your logo or updating it, things to consider when doing that, and also some points to let you know whether you are ready for an update or a possible full rebrand or not. So the first thing is logos have to be legible. Let's talk about what a logo does. A logo is kind of like your signature. John Hancock's signature is kind of like a logo back then. It's kind of what it did. It tells people who you are, and it's that kind of authenticating mark that this is you or your brand, and you are endorsing either your product or service officially. So in order to do that, you have to think of all the places the logo might be. And that's why we want to make sure that it's legible at any size. People can immediately understand what it is or recognize it, whether it's being printed on a little receipt on that crappy paper that goes invisible after so many months. You have to think about, you only get one color with that. Ideally, your logo should be able to be like the bat symbol, right? When we call Batman, we shoot the bat signal up into the sky and it reflects on the clouds and we can see that. But if your logo has like your tagline put in there and your motto and your 4 reasons that started your company and all that stuff up there, that's not gonna translate very well as a bat signal. So that's why we want to make sure that your logo can work at one color. If your logo has 5 different colors and they have to be in there for you to recognize what it is, or else it just doesn't work, then that means you can never print in single color, which is a common thing that happens. And you want to make sure that your logo still looks good at one color, as well as a bat signal. Then we also want to make sure that your logo can be, ideally logos can be separated from the words, the name, and the mark. So for instance, I have here, we've got Nike, right? And Nike, this is their mark, the swoosh. And then down here is their tagline, just do it. Sometimes they have the swoosh and they'll say Nike on top. Sometimes they'll just do the swoosh. Sometimes they'll just say Nike. Sometimes they'll just say just do it. And that depends on the context. So sometimes it's not appropriate to have words. For instance, if you're putting your logo on a shoe as Nike, no Nike's shoes say Nike just do it on the side of the shoe. That would be kind of stupid. So they don't do that. And you shouldn't either. If your logo, if you are a construction company and you have big trucks, you can have the name and the phone number somewhere on the side of the truck, but you don't have to have the name and the tagline and the slogan on the side of a truck. The same way Nike doesn't put just do it Nike on the side of every shoe. That being said, I want to talk about the different kinds of logos. So since I'm here on this topic, we're going to talk about the 3 different kinds of logos. There's basically the word mark, which is Walmart. This is their old logo, and I brought this up to compare it to their new logo because people are often horrified of the idea of updating their logo. But if Walmart can do it, so can you. It's not that hard. And I'm going to get into why it's so important to today's world with social media and the whole digital side of things, why it's really important to consider whether your logo can survive in today's environment. And I'll talk about the things that your logo needs to have in order to do that. But before I do that, I want to talk about the different kinds of logos. So we have the word mark, which is Walmart. And then we have like Apple, that's called a pictorial. So that's like the actual thing, you say the thing, and that's what it is. So like Target is a Target. Apple, it is an apple. And then you have what we kind of consider as the holy grail, and that's an abstract shape. And that's like Nike's abstract shape. So Coca-Cola, I have pictures of Coca-Cola here. This is a word mark. This is kind of an abstract shape. And those are great because they work in any language. So Nike doesn't have to modify their logo. Like Coca-Cola, I don't know which language this is, but it's clearly not English, I can tell you that. And they have to have a whole new logo in a different language. And Nike doesn't have to do that. They can just change the type that says Nike, and their swoosh, they don't have to make different shoes for different countries. If your logo had your name in it as a word mark, you might have to consider that. Apple is lucky with their pictorial thing that it's, they don't have to change that. But if you say it in another language, the word apple doesn't mean apple to you if you don't speak English. The shape still does, but apple is just a foreign word. So that's why we consider graphic designers, we pretty much like it if you can get something like this, which Walmart had, this little shape here, this meaningless, ambiguous thing, which can work anywhere, and it can become anything you want it to mean. You can add, pour all kinds of meaning into this shape. Now that we're talking about shapes, I want to talk about things to consider with a logo. I talked about legibility, making sure that your logo is readable at any size. If it's printed teeny tiny, like this thing, can be really, really small, we can still recognize it. You want to make sure that it can exist in one color, or in some cases it could be like etched in glass or something where you wouldn't need color in order for the thing to still be just as impactful. We want to make sure that hopefully your mark can be separated from the type. So we have our type here, and then we have our mark. And the reason why that's important, especially today, is think of where your logo is going to be viewed. Context is so important. So today, people will see your logo at the bottom of your email signature, probably more than they'll see it on your product, if you're a business to business. They're also going to see it on your social media icon, your little Facebook icon, that teeny tiny thing, or the favicon, which is this itty bitty little thing at the top of the browser. When you have your tabs, you can see that you're at some page, it has that little bitty thing it's tiny. So if you have this long thing, like massive long name that has all this extra stuff in there, there's no way that's going to translate well in the digital world. And today, with our constant updates and changes with everything in that kind of realm that we live in, today's digital age, you have to be able to update. And that's exactly why Walmart did this. I remember when they updated it, I was in graphic design school, and nobody liked the new logo. We all thought it was stupid and everybody's criticizing it. But look at how ugly this old one looks now. This looks so outdated. And that's because when you do a logo rebrand, typically, hopefully, if you do it right, you should be kind of designing for a few years ahead so that it can last a long time. And that's exactly what this one did. They changed the font, they made it upper and lowercase rather than all caps, because this just looks like Walmart, we're going to dominate you and take over the world. And that was kind of the brand that people started to view them as. So they had to change that, and part of it was having a much softer font that was just easier on the eyes and less authoritarian, and also this little mark that they could use separately in all their other branding ventures that they take on. They did an excellent job. I also want to talk about another rebrand, Google. This was another controversial logo that updated. The old logo, by comparison, is kind of crappy, honestly. This logo wasn't made by a serious designer who thought, lots of thought. It was a bunch of two guys that were putting the idea of the search engine together. They thought of a funny name and they typed it out and let's make every letter a different color. And what do you know? They ended up being one of the biggest, most powerful tech companies in the world. So when they updated, there were some things they couldn't change. For instance, their signature colors, they kept those, but they updated their font to be more current, as well as legible. This G here has a lot of thicks and thins in it, as well as like this E, and that doesn't work well when it gets really small. Those little thin lines, they disappear. So when you have this kind of font that's what we call a Gothic font, where it's uniform shapes, we don't have like lots of thicks and thins. Like this O has a thin part up here and a thicker part over here, but this one's fairly uniform and symmetrical. And that lends itself that at a tiny size, we can just use the G, which is what Google does. They'll just use this big G as their logo when it gets small. And that way it's still legible, it's still readable as a tiny little thing. So I want to talk about updating your logo. If you're looking at your logo and you're thinking, oh, we can't update it, it's been that way for years, and everybody's used to it and our customers are used to it. Think of it this way. If you updated your logo, do you think none of your customers would ever buy your service again? And go, well, they changed their logo, I can never go in that building again. If that is the case, you might need to reconsider your business model. I don't think I've ever not patroned a business because they updated their logo. If it is a case where your product is defined by that shape, like Nike's Nike swoosh, well, then you might need to hopefully get it right the first time. And but I doubt you're Nike, and I doubt that's the case of what you're dealing with. Just like Google's this massive, powerful tech company that's touching every kind of thing in the technology world there is, and they updated. And they understood that their thing was outdated, it was antiquated, it didn't work well, and they needed to update it, so they did it. So you can do that too. And sometimes it can be a little update, like Google just changing a font. If you're more courageous, you can try redoing the whole thing. But mainly the reason why we would do that is to make sure that we're legible at any size, that we can exist in one color, or as a bat symbol. We can make sure that our logo can be pared down to be a simple shape that we can put on a Facebook icon without having our name stuck in there. Those are the things you want your logo to be able to do, and if you can do that, then your logo is a great logo and will work well. That's pretty much my logo rant. I'm Trueson Daugherty with Brookside Studios, signing out.